We can go and get Jim after we play with you. We have enough time.
Are you kidding me? I am Jimmy's wife.
I'm gonna show you something that's gonna drive you crazy.
Don't let infidelity infiltrate your relationship. Subscribe to the channel to know everything about real strong love. Sit back and listen to this extremely interesting story.
I knew that Jimmy wasn't very smart when we wed. Okay, I know I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer either, but Jimmy is something else, always has been. We married pretty much straight out of high school when we thought he had made me pregnant, but turned out that he couldn't even do that right either. Our marriage wasn't exactly one made in heaven, but I acted out being the dutiful wife, while he just seemed to muddle along doing just enough to pay the bills working at a builder's warehouse as a low-grade storeman. Our social life was non-existent, and his idea of a fun night was either to sit at home watching the game on TV with a six-pack of beers and a packet of chips, or if there was no game to watch, to go out and sit in a bar with his equally no-brain buddies shooting the crap. I had long gone beyond the point where I accepted that this was going to be my life for the next zillion years when one night I got a call from the local precinct. Jimmy had been pulled over following a hit and run, arrested and charged with drunk driving. Bad news for Jimmy, but as it turned out, it was going to be seen as good news for me. The desk sergeant told me that they would be keeping him in while they filed the charges, prepared paperwork and such. He said I might like to engage a lawyer to arrange bail. After I put the phone down, I went into a minor panic. Hell, I didn't know about lawyers and stuff like that. The only thing I could think to do was to give Jimmy's boss, Charlie, a call the following morning. I had met him once when I visited the warehouse to take Jimmy the packed lunch he had left at home.
Amanda had no idea how this call would turn her life upside down.
I made the call and told him Jimmy wouldn't be in for a few days. At first, I didn't tell him the reason why, but he started asking questions, and I started to cry, and along with my tears, it soon came out, and I told him about the arrest. I thought that he would freak out and say that Jimmy was fired, but surprisingly, he didn't say anything of the sort. He just told me to calm down and that he would be over in just a few minutes and we could sort something out. It was just a little while, and then I heard a car pull up onto the drive. I let him in, and straight away he could tell I was really stressed about what Jimmy had done, and he said about trying to calm me so that I could talk rationally. He went into the kitchen and made me a drink, and when he came back, he sat me down, and with him standing behind me innocently began rubbing my neck and shoulders. The massage felt good, and I began to relax. He asked if I knew how much they had set Jimmy's bail. I told him $350 as it was his first time.
At that moment, Amanda felt that someone needed her, but what happened next will surprise you.
He didn't say anything but continued to massage my neck for a few more moments. Then he bent down and he said he would be willing to get Jim out.
But you'll have to help me out.
I wasn't sure what he meant and asked what he was talking about.
We can go and get Jim after we play with you. We have enough time.
I was shocked. I hardly knew this guy, had only met him once fleetingly, and here he was propositioning me, taking advantage of my distress. I protested, said something along the line of, "Are you kidding me? I am Jimmy's wife. I couldn't do that to him. He's the only boy I have ever been with." It wasn't strictly true, but it was all I could think of to say. Charlie ignored me, and the next thing I know is that he's standing in front of me, unzipping his pants and asking,
"Does your husband have the same banana?"
I was shocked. The banana was unrealistically large. I just stared for what seemed like hours until he brought me back to reality.
What do you think, Amanda?
I nodded my head and said, "Promise me that if I do this, then we'll go and bail Jimmy out." To tell you the truth, when I saw him, I wasn't too worried about Jimmy. Charlie smiled.
So it's a deal.
And again, all I could do was nod. Don't get me wrong, at that moment he mesmerized me. And what would you have done? And yes, I did what you think I did. I've never felt like that before. For the next 3 hours, he played like I'd never known and hit places that Jimmy couldn't touch or didn't even know existed for him. I lost count of how many times I felt good. Content and just laying there with him, I lost account of the time. I asked, and he looked at his watch, then me, and said,
"It's coming up for midday. Shall we go get Jim?"
I really couldn't have cared less. Shrugging my shoulders made a non-committal, I guess. Charlie laughed.
"Good girl. Maybe there will be time for more later."
We dressed and I drove us to the jail around a little after 2 p.m. Charlie paid the bail in cash, and the officer said it would be about 30 minutes before he would be released as the paperwork wasn't finished. While we waited, Charlie held my hand and said he was looking forward to seeing me more often. I told him that I was looking forward to it too. They brought Jim up, and the look of relief on his face when he saw me was almost pitiable. He smiled to see us there, and when he saw his boss, he knew he didn't have to ask who had bailed him out. On the ride home, he sat in the back as Charlie sat in the passenger seat. Jimmy kept thanking him and said he would pay him back the first chance he got. Charlie looked at me with a smile and a wink and said,
Don't worry about it. It was a pleasure to help out a friend and a good employee.
Found it difficult to keep a straight face. Once we got back to the house, Charlie said he should be going and told Jim not to worry about coming into work, but that he would see him bright and early in the morning. I waited to hear Charlie's car leave the drive and then turned to Jimmy and dragged him into the bedroom. He was confused, as I guess he thought I was going to bawl him out, but I didn't say a word about it. I just told him I wanted to give him a welcome home cuddle. He looked about and made a mention about the bed not being made, but I told him I had been so worried about him that all I could do was toss and turn. I didn't tell him exactly when it was I had been tossing and turning. Before playing with his little pony, I made Jim eat me. He said that I tasted really good tonight. While all this was happening, I was thinking about whether to tell him what his boss had just done. I decided against. Over the next few weeks, while we waited for Jimmy to go to trial, I continued to show Charlie a lot more of my gratitude. I was so grateful and such a good girl that Charlie said he was going to get Jimmy a good lawyer. Jimmy, being Jimmy, thought he knew better and told Charlie to save his money and said he would go with having a public defender. Good call, Jimmy. He got 2 years less 1 day for time served. Charlie and me were very happy about that, as it allowed us to have plenty of quality, uninterrupted time together. When Jimmy got out, I greeted him with a 10-month-old baby girl. Charlie was the father, no doubt, but Jimmy thought it was him that had got me pregnant before he went away. I've never told him any different.
Friends, this story should serve as an example for you of how to keep your heart unbroken. What would you do in Amanda's place? I am interested in your opinion in the comments. Subscribe to our channel to prevent your significant other from cheating on you, and go listen to the next story. Because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next story.